Hello and welcome back to my channel. As you can see, we are in my house right now and not the gym, and that's because I last minute decided to do a comp this evening. It's Friday evening here in Chattanooga, and unfortunately it is raining all weekend, but what else to do on a rainy weekend than do a competition here in town. So the qualifier round for the open category is tonight starting at 7 p.m. And then if I make it to finals, that'll be tomorrow evening. But before I go in about an hour, I just kind of wanted to set some expectations for myself or some goals for myself going into the comp. I do have a history of competition climbing, mostly when I was a kid. I did the USA Climbing Youth Circuit, but I do have a handful of open competitions under my belt, and this is a pretty casual one, so it won't be anything super high pressure, but it is just an interesting challenge for this qualifier round. At least I'm not 100% sure the structure actually, but I imagine it'll be something like my top 5 climbs from the round. And what's interesting about this is it's testing the same skills that I'll usually do on a pretty regular basis in the gym, but doing it in a different environment. So it is going to be a higher pressure environment. There's going to be other people around. As much as it's good to focus on my own climbing, the natural part of being in a competition is I'm going to be seeing what the other girls are doing and just trying to keep track of where my score might be in regards to theirs. So there's of course setting outcome goals, which is much less in my control, especially when it comes to a competition. A goal like making it to finals. A really low-hanging goal is just to finish a scorecard, which is sometimes just the approach I take to competition. So that's going to be my low goal, finish a scorecard. High goal is to make it to finals. But I also really like to set process goals because the outcome is much less in my control. It's really me trying my best, but also the result is going to be dependent on how the other girls do. So for me, in my history of competitions, I get really nervous for them, even in the lower stakes ones. It's just part of my personality and how I handle the competition setting. So I think what I really want to do tonight is be really intentional with my attempts and trying to get as much information about a climb as I can before I get on it, and just feel like each attempt is really intentional and meaningful. I think sometimes in the more anxious environment, if I feel that pressure, I can be like, oh, I need to finish this climb, I need to finish this climb, and can rapid fire or spend too much time on a climb that's actually not going to be beneficial for my scores. And yeah, I think the second goal is just going to be trying to manage my emotions. I think that's a really good goal for me. I can definitely get kind of worked up, and I think it's a really good challenge to see, okay, in this higher pressure, different environment, how can I stay calm, brainstorming these tactics before I go in, and just trying to keep a little bit more of a level head. So I'm going to try my best to film as much as I can while I'm there, but I'll be doing a voiceover after the fact while I take you through the videos. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see what happens. The format was a little different than what I expected. There were 8 climbs on the open women's scorecard, and you would get 25 points for topping each of those climbs. The white tape marked the zone, and you would get 10 points if you got to the zone. So this is the first of the 8 climbs that I was able to do. The first few climbs weren't too bad, and it was definitely nice to get some points on the board. And even though the format wasn't exactly what I was expecting, I actually did really like this structure because there were only 8 possible climbs to try and do, and there was less of trying to figure out which climbs to try. And so the tactics were definitely a little bit different. This was the 3rd climb that I did. I didn't manage to get video of myself on it, but it was fun. This was the last of the first 4 boulders that were in this room for the open women's category, and it was definitely a step up from the others. It involved a paddle dyno, which I was happy with how quickly I had started to figure it out, but then I really struggled to get the movement right to stick that second hold. I tried it for a while, but then just felt like I was plateauing on the move and wasn't making any more progress, so I decided to take a break after this last go and try a different climb. It's a little hard to see on this one, but each of the climbs had a 4-point start, meaning that for each piece of tape you had to put a limb there. And as you can see on this one, there was a toe hook start that I had a little trouble establishing on. But I was able to get the start position down a little bit more consistently and stuck this dyno out of that start position on my second try after establishing. The rest of the moves weren't too bad. I had a little bit of trouble committing on the move to the finish hold, but was able to do it as a double clutch. And then I totally missed that there was a volume out left for the finish match and proceeded to struggle to find a finishing position for about 30 seconds before just muscling my way through. This next climb I had tried a little bit at the beginning of the session, thinking it might be a better warm-up climb since it's more full body and on a more vertical angle, but the coordination move gave me a lot of trouble. I don't know if you've watched some of my previous videos, but definitely dynamic lateral movement is a weakness of mine, but I definitely really wanted to get the zone on this one and get those 10 points. Then once I did get the zone and sized up the next move, I realized how far away it felt and didn't feel very close, so after getting the zone, I decided to move on. There were only 2 climbs that I hadn't been on yet, this being one of them, and of the 2 climbs left, only 2 girls had done either of them, so my goal for this climb was just to get the points from the zone. This was definitely the most physical boulder that we had in our round. The pinches felt super wide and it just required a lot of body tension. My sequence to get to the zone here was actually wrong. You wanted left hand where I put my right hand, but I just wanted the points. Then I came back to this blue boulder to try and get the zone on this one, which would require me to stick the paddle dyno. I don't know what it was exactly about this go, but I felt like I got a lot higher, and that right hand hold that you paddle to just felt way better and like a completely different hold. So I was psyched to get to the zone and figured I would try and finish it up. I had seen a few girls do it, so knew the beta for the end sequence, but I had also seen a couple girls fall at the top and I knew it was pretty hard. And at this last move, I just told myself to just go for it as hard as I could. Finishing this climb the first time that I stuck the paddle was definitely a highlight. At this point, I had sent 5 of the 8 climbs and got in zone on the 2 others. I decided to try this green one again, but using the correct beta to get to the zone to see what the upper portion felt like and if it was something that felt doable. I was already extremely tired by the time I got to this big pinch, and this was probably the crux of the boulder. It was a super big walk off, and it just didn't feel like it was going to be possible with the amount of energy that I had. So I finally got on the last boulder that I hadn't tried. It was a very precarious slab. One thing that I found really challenging about it is that while the footholds are really good, they aren't the most high profile, so my body was just super close into the wall the whole time, and it was difficult to figure out how to create space and generate momentum towards the crimp. I decided to try it one more time just to give her the old second go, and I really didn't have high expectations on this climb because while only 2 girls topped the boulder, only 2 girls got the zone on this climb, so it was a really challenging one and one that I didn't necessarily feel like I needed to spend a ton of time and energy on. In contrast, this climb, I believe 5 other girls did, and I felt like maybe that was better to focus the end of the session. I did have a better go once I revisited it, but then I started having trouble sticking the move to the zone again. At this point, there was only about 15 minutes left in the round, and I really wanted to stick to the zone one more time because I had some other ideas in mind, but unfortunately, it just wasn't gonna go for me this session. Hello, it's the next day. I am happy to report that I made finals. They took 6 into finals and I'm sitting in 5th going in. So we'll see what happens tonight, but you'll have to wait till next week to find out. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next week.